Hello, my little mushrooms. Episode 7. And the timber has arrived for the stud walls. It's a beautiful sunny day, but really the weather doesn't matter anymore because I have a roof I can work under. So I'm over the moon. Now, before we get this last panel up on the roof and start building the stud walls, I should probably address the health issue. We're in September and I'm on my way to getting my first incorrect diagnosis of type 2 diabetes in November. What's happening in the meantime? Well, I'm losing weight. The heaviest I've ever been in my life is 75 kilos, and I remember distinctly being very happy about that. I've always been thin, always been self-conscious about it, so kind of milestone moment. So you can imagine my distress when I noticed that my clothes aren't fitting like they used to, and I'm having to do up another notch on my belt.
So, Petal, why all the weight loss?
Let me explain. Your HbA1c is a measure of your blood sugar over time. It's measured in millimoles per mole, and a healthy HbA1c is anything under 42. Over the last few months I'd been to the doctor and my HbA1c was increasing. On my last visit I was up at 72, so well and truly in diabetic territory. Okay, so why am I losing weight? Well, if you're diabetic, you're not producing enough insulin. Think of insulin as a key that opens the door to the cell and allows the blood sugar from your bloodstream in to give you energy. If that door is locked, your body has to dig into its own fat reserves, and slowly over time, you begin to lose weight. Why am I telling you this now? Well, over the next few months, I'm going to get a lot skinnier, and not intentionally. And I didn't want you guys worrying. All part of my diabetic journey. Now, with that out of the way, let's get back to the build. So I didn't want the studio looking like a box, so I decided to go for an overhang on the side, and I just extended the purlines with timber, and the last roof panel will just sit on these. But it meant cutting it down to size, and I thought this was going to be a mission, but it wasn't too bad. I picked up a blade for cutting metal, and it did the job nicely. The depth of the blade wasn't deep enough to go right through the panel, so I had to turn the panel over and cut the other side as well, finishing it off with a handsaw. And then it was just a matter of popping it up on the roof. Now the rain could come and go as it pleased, and I could work nice and dry underneath. Next job was removing these side purline brackets. If you're using side cladding, you just put a purline in between each of the posts and you'd fix your cladding to those purlines. I'm building a timber stud wall, so I won't need them. And I even took a little bit of time to sand down the sharp edges. Last thing I did was mirror what I did on the left hand side on the right hand side. We're probably mid-October at this stage, so don't have a whole lot of daylight hours. Finish work about 5. I could be home at 5:30 or 6 depending, so I only really have an hour and a half to work max. Even if it's a half an hour, I try to just do a little bit to prep for the next day. Here I'm just cutting out the timber for the sole plates and beefing out the steel supports. Now, understandably, one of the questions I get asked a lot is, are you finished your studio yet? So, I'm going to show you a slice of reality, the actual speed this project is moving forward at. Oh, bless. You keep going. You're doing great. Oh, dearie me. This looks as if it's going to be painful. No, I'm not having it. You're not doing this time. Look, I'm not trying to be cruel. The lad just does a little bit too much faffing about for my liking. You always do this. You've no idea what he is going through. Look, all I'm saying is if he was a little bit more organised, things would flow better for him. You are being so mean right now. He's already done a full day's work instead of spending time with his family. He's out here trying to make his dream come true. He's got the whole diabetes thing happening in the background, and it's going to be dark soon.
Okay, I know that. What's he done the last 5 minutes? He's walking up and down, Billy to Jack. What's he trying to do? Get his steps in. The lad is the circuit a mile, Lord.
No.
You can see it 100 miles
You're
away.
not doing this. He's tired. He's probably dehydrated. And
It's been raining since January.
No.
Okay. Do you think he'll have these walls up before the winter?
I don't know. I don't know.
Despite the circumstances, he's doing the best he can. Despite the circumstances, he's doing the best he can.
And so it was that Tony worked into the depths of the autumnal night, working on his soul plate. It's actually quite dark here now. Okay, I think we'll park. We'll come back to this in the morning. My lordy, we need to get a move on. Now that the soil plates are in, this shouldn't take too long. The only slight difficulty on this side was the sloping angle. But come on, we're working with timber. This is much more pleasant. Dare I say, enjoyable? Yeah, I was enjoying this. For the first time in a long time, a little bit of work seemed to yield a big result. Before too long, I was working on the back wall, marking up the stud 400 centres and cutting the timber. They actually look tiny here because of the camera angle, but they're actually going to span the distance from the soil plate to the purlin. Did you ever watch those home improvement programs where the carpenters build a stud wall on the ground and then just lift it into place? I thought I'd give that a go. Granted, they're not usually making it in the dark, but as crazy as this looks, it was just marking out the positions and putting the screws in. The next day, I could properly see the fruits of my labour. All I had to do now was slot that stud wall gently into place. Bing, bang, and bosh. And next... Yeah, that never happens. The purlins are stretching a 6.5-7 metre span, so they're slightly sagging in the middle. Not an extraordinary amount, but enough to stop the stud from sloshing into place. I used my trusty jack to raise the purlin just a little bit, and with a smidgeen of golf swing sledgehammer persuasion, things really were slotting into place. If I wasn't so busy building a studio, I think I'd be really good at golf. Now, the whole idea of that 7 metre span was I had envisaged a large sliding door, not that big, at the front of the studio. As it happened, we changed the window and the door at the back of the house. We got builders in and we created a large sliding door at the back of the house. So then all of a sudden I was thinking, well, I don't want a large sliding door facing a large sliding door. It would feel like a bit of a fishbowl. Never mind the cost of large sliding doors. So already I was thinking smaller is probably the better way to go. I decided to just put the wall up and I'd fine-tune the details of what sort of door to put in it at a later stage. Over the next few days, I just beefed out the walls. I wanted to get it sort of weather-tight before the winter really set in. And the more the walls came together, the more I started to think about more of a permanent solution with the power. But not a permanent solution with the power. I'm not that organised. But maybe make use of the ducts that I'd run in. So I ran in a 16mm squared steel-wired armoured cable to comply with electrical regulations set out by the Electro-Technical Council of Ireland. And little by little, inch by inch, I got that cable in. Thank you, ETCI rules. I left enough slack to go back to the fuse board, but just left it in the attic for the minute. It took a while to pull the cable into the attic. It felt almost as if somebody was standing on the cable, preventing it from going in. But cable can snag on all sorts of things, so it's kind of par for the course. But eventually I got it in. And just in the nick of time, because there was beginning to be a chill in the air. November 1st, and while I give this place a little tidy up, I'll explain about a goal I have for December. I want to take December off, meaning no work after work. That's easy to do out here, but in the house it's a different story. Maybe this is a good time to over-explain the name of the channel. Making space for music is obviously about making a physical space to be creative in, but it's also about making space in my life for music. It's not always easy to find the time to do those passions, especially as a stupid grown-up. My life for the last couple of years has been insulating our house room by room, amongst other things, of course. But now those rooms need decorating. I've been sketching out a few ideas, and I'd like to get the sitting room done before the 1st of December. So, let's get a move on. I finished the timber stud on the back wall and straightened out all the uprights. I cut in noggins for additional support, and that original wobble of the steel frame is now a distant memory. I keep making my way around the walls with the noggins, but pause that reinforcement around where the door might go or where a window might go. I'll make that decision at a later stage. One place I know there are no windows and doors is that back wall. So I picked up some OSB 3 boards and clean out the cement along the stud work and decide to board that section up. I cut the boards to size so they'll fix to the timber stud work and they'll overlap the brickwork of the concrete base by about 30 mil. I spent a little bit of time lining up that first board, making sure it was level and in the correct position, that it wasn't down too much, and then just had to cut the remaining boards to the same size and slide them into place. You can see I'm using those two little pry bars to lever them up and then just screw them to the studs. Once I had my technique down, I just cut 3 or 4 boards to the same size and slid them in one by one. So it actually went up quite quick. Didn't want them exposed to the elements, so used a breathable membrane on the bottom and then overlapped it on the top. And I just used a heavy duty stapler to staple this to the OSB 3 board. That offered it protection against the rain, although in that tight little space it wasn't really getting rained on a whole lot. Okay, we still got one little mission before we call it for the year. Let's talk Operation Christmas Tree. As you now know, I've been insulating the rooms in the house one by one. I didn't want to do any of this, but the morning after we moved in, it was 7 degrees on the landing, and I said, no. One of the first things we did was get a stove to try and get a little bit of heat into the house. But now that the rooms are insulated, we barely use the stove. Anytime we turned it on, we were actually opening windows. So earlier in the year, I made the decision to get rid of it and just close the fireplace up. The added bonus there was it was actually the longest wall in the room. So it meant we could put our sofas against that wall. But we were missing a focal point. Not that I understand anything about focal points, but just felt something was missing. Hence the doodles.
These days I don't leave the house. I'm a cooped up a ghost on the couch, and I don't even leave. My girl gets the post, and I'm head down as meek as a mouse.
I picked myself up an electric fire. So it's a blow air heater, but it has that fire flame effect. You see them everywhere. Once I figured out what height I wanted it at, I built a frame around it, just being mindful to keep the timber away from any hot parts or any parts that might heat up. I covered it in fire-rated plasterboard and used L brackets to support the plasterboard closer to the heater, and I just used adhesive to stick the plasterboard to to the L brackets. With that heat effect in the back of my mind, I didn't want anything material-wise near that part of the heater, so I used some brick slips just to kind of be a buffer between that and the acoustic wall panels. I hadn't used these before, and I cut them with a circular saw, but you can actually cut them with a handsaw. I threw together a little mantle just to hang the Christmas stockings on, and took the acoustic wall paneling off again to get out the brick slips. That seems like a big deal, but it actually wasn't. I was going to paint the room as well, so it was just as handy. And to get me in the mood for painting, I sanded and stained the little mantle. Inching closer to my December cut-off point, so tidied up any woodwork that needed tidying, sanded the walls and prepped for painting. I painted the woodwork first with a water-based satin paint and then dove into our two-tone colour scheme. We decided to be brave on this one and go dark on the ceiling as well. I've never painted a room this dark in my life, so I wasn't sure if it was going to work. So I was actually quite nervous painting this, especially the ceiling. Now, I'm no painting expert, but one thing I've learned over the years is never buy cheap paint. You'll end up paying for it in labour. You'll have to put, 5 or 6 coats on it, and it still won't look good. On the second coat, this was starting to look much better. Because my painting skills aren't too hot, I bought some painter's tape, but kind of ended up regretting this a little bit because when I peeled it off, it started to peel off some of the darker paint. It's nearly worth spending a bit of time building up those skills to cut in with a brush between the colours. Once I started on that second colour, my confidence began to grow, as in that we had made the right decision. Before too long, the room was beginning to take shape. I peeled off that painter's tape and I touched up the corners where the paint had peeled off. This was painful. This was a painful moment. But I could see the potential of the room, and that was kind of giving me my energy back. And Lord knows I was energy depleted. So, have we missed our deadline? Well, it's the 1st of December, and we're in tidy up mode. I close up the open sockets, give the floor a little going over before we bring the furniture in, hang the TV for those all-important Christmas movies, and put the acoustic wall panels back on my fake fireplace. I picked up 2 wall lights on Amazon and wired them to either side of the fireplace. So it's either A, gonna look good, or B, highlight the blemishes on the wall. You can tell me. Probably a mixture of both. So, want to see the final results? 3rd of December, Operation Christmas Tree accomplished. Are we at the 18-minute mark already? Oh my lord, I've taken up way too much of your time. Okay, well, if you haven't done it already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss episode 8. Whatever that's going to be about. I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Peace out, my little mushrooms.
The circumstances, he's doing the best he can. Despite the circumstances, he's doing the best he can. Despite the circumstances.